and thank you for being here. My name is Femi. I'm very excited to talk about this very important topic that is bridging the gap between neurodivergent and neurotypical colleagues. I want to start by saying I really hope that we have more neurotypical individuals in the audience than neurodivergent because this talk is mainly, for neurodiversity awareness. And the talk is about understanding how neurodivergent brains work, the challenges neurodivergent professionals face, and how we can build more inclusive workspace. So whether you are neurodivergent or you work with colleagues that are, or you're just interested in creating a supportive workplace, this section is for you, and I hope you gain some knowledge. A little about me. My name is Samuel Femi Taiwo. Everyone calls me Femi. I'm originally from Nigeria, and I've been living in Cape Town for about 11 years. I've also been in the tech industry for about 10 years. I've worked as a developer, as a tester, worked as a product support engineer, currently planning to transition to product engineer. I work at Side GmbH. It's a WordPress agency in Germany. I'm also a passionate advocate for diversity, inclusivity, and accessibility. Now, a bit more personal information. I'm neurodivergent, and I'm also living with epilepsy. Some short story about my conditions. I had febrile seizures, also called convulsions in babies when I was from 2 to 4, and then they stopped. Then when I turned 16, I think I remember I was writing my final exams in high school, then I started having seizures again. But the funny story is I did not know what was going on with me because I had a different kind of seizures. So for the first 4 years of me having seizures, I did not know I was epileptic, and it was just confusing. At some point, I thought I was developing some kind of superpower from the deja vu and the false memories that I get. It was a very confusing period of my life. But in 2015, I think, I was in South Africa then. I was at work. I remember I had a seizure, and a colleague who was also epileptic saw that and said, oh, he's having a seizure. And then I was taken to the hospital, and that was where my diagnosis started, and I got diagnosed with epilepsy. And I've been living with that since then. And I also know that epilepsy, comes with these other conditions like depression and severe anxiety, and I try to manage that as much as I can. And I think I manage it well, but still for many years I didn't know why I struggle with certain things like time management, distractions, communication styles, until 2021 when I was diagnosed with ADHD. And that also has a funny story because I wasn't going for a diagnosis. I was participating in a medical study for people living with epilepsy. And it was at the study that I got diagnosed with ADHD and OCD. I was shocked and I was surprised, but things make sense. And the thing with late diagnosis, if you ask every adult that got late diagnosis with any neurodivergent conditions, it will be like, oh yeah, now that makes sense, yeah, right. And my diagnosis really helped me understand that the way I function is different, but not wrong. Also, earlier this year, my ADHD diagnosis was changed to AUDHD, so it's a new one every year. So why this topic? Because I know firsthand how frustrating it can be when work environments are built for people who think differently. And I've also seen how small, tiny changes can make massive difference. Because when we understand each other better, we collaborate better, we work better, and we can create an environment where everyone can do their best work. So for neurotypicals, I'm just going to give a quick definition of what neurodiversity is. It simply refers to the natural variation in how people think, learn, and process information. And here are some common neurodivergent conditions. ADHD, just differences in attention, focus, and impulse control. Autism spectrum disorder, unique ways of processing social interactions and sensory information. There's dyslexia and dyspraxia, challenges with reading, writing, and coordination. OCD and anxiety-related processing differences, differences in how people regulate thoughts and actions. There's Tourette syndromes, involuntary movements, and vocalizations called tics. Now, for epilepsy, some people don't categorize epilepsy as a neurodivergent condition. Some do. I think there's kind of a debate on that. I think kind of depends on the, the type of seizures that you have. But a lot of people living with epilepsy are neurodivergent, and those people like me have had to manage epilepsy with their conditions, which can be very challenging. And when we talk about neurodiversity, we're not referring to a small group of people. As I've added, it is estimated that between 1.2 and 1.6 billion people worldwide are neurodivergent. So to put that into perspective, that's 1 out of 6 people. So if you have a team of 6 or more, chances are very high that at least one of your colleagues is neurodivergent, whether they've disclosed this or not. And that means neurodivergent individuals are already part of our workplace, our meetings, our community, and our culture. So before I discuss challenges and solutions, let's talk about some common myths and misconceptions about neurodiversity, because these misconceptions are the first barrier to neurodiversity awareness. The first one is they just need to try harder. And this is the most persistent and harmful misconceptions, because it assumes that neurodivergent people, especially people living with ADHD or executive dysfunction, are simply lazy or unmotivated. But the reality is far more complex. For someone living with ADHD, for example, the brain struggles with regulating attention and initiating tasks. It's not because they don't care. It's not because I don't want to do that task. I really want to do that task. You have no idea how much I want to do that task. My brain has just refused to do that task. I don't really know how to explain it to you. Yeah. But because the neurological pathways that manage these functions simply operate differently. And as I said, it's not that I don't want to do that task. And me not doing that task, it's very important to know that there is a torture in my brain. Anything else that I'm doing, I still have it at the back of my mind that I need to complete that task. And it's hot in my brain, but for some reason, I simply can't complete it at that moment. So it's like then telling someone to try harder is like telling someone with poor eyesight to squint harder instead of offering them glasses. And I know some people have like found ways and tricks to overcome this, and it works for some people and it doesn't, but we all try. So what helps is not pressure or shame, but structure, clarity, and tools like time management aids, visual reminders, or accountability systems. Another one is they just being difficult. This one often comes up when someone requests accommodation that might seem minor to others, like turning down lights or avoiding certain smells or asking for a quieter space. No, this request can be seen as being picky or dramatic, but they are about survival and functionality, because many neurodivergent individuals, including people living with autism, ADHD, or sensory processing differences, experience sensory overload, where everyday stimuli like bright lights, for example, the one in my face right now, the background chatter of certain textures can feel very overwhelming or even painful. It's not about this discomfort, it's a neurological response that can trigger anxiety, shutdowns, or sometimes pain. I know that I can't work in a crowded place. I know I'm not the kind of person that will say I want to go work at a coffee shop. No, it's not going to work. During, was it 2, 3 years ago, when we deal with load shedding, for non-South Africans here, we will explain what load shedding is later. Uh, and a lot of people had to, find coffee shops or office spaces to work. I could not do that because I try as much, get noise cancellation headset, but no, it didn't help. But my company provided me with an inverter so I could actually work in my own space, and that really just solved that problem for me. Because imagine trying to do your best work while someone blasts static noise in your ears or shines a flashlight in your eyes. That's what it feels like a lot of time. So it's not about being difficult, it's someone advocating for their ability to function. Another one is neurodiversity is just a trend. I think I can speak about an hour on this because it pisses me off a lot. It's not a buzzword or a passing social media phase. No, we all know it's a well established science-backed framework. And yes, platforms like TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram have brought neurodivergence into the spotlight, where you know the visibility has increased, but still it has opened the door to a flood of misinformation because some content oversimplifies, exaggerate, or even romanticize certain traits, make it seem like it's cool, it's that, and for people who actually struggle with this, it can be very annoying because it makes it seem like it's just a trend or a personality quirk. And I get frustrated whenever I come across content like this. On my Instagram and TikTok, I have a bookmark folder called Nonsense ADHD content. But we can't let this misinformation erase the legitimacy of lived experience or decades of research because when I was diagnosed with ADHD, because of this content, I didn't want to let people know that I had this because of what I've seen online. But then someone spoke to me saying, that's not your problem. This is what you have. It's your life and you have to live it. And the last one is they can't work well in teams. This is very common stereotype, and I also believed it at some point that I can't work in teams. I mentioned earlier that I worked as a developer, then a tester, then product support. The reason I changed was because at some point I was in a team where I don't know, it just wasn't working. It feels like maybe I'm the one who was being difficult, and I'm like, okay, I think I don't work well in teams, so I want to move to a different profession where I don't really have to deal with other developers, designers, team leads, and maybe I'm just dealing with customers. And then I did that, and that worked. But later on, right now, I still do the same thing, but right now I'm actually doing a lot of discussing with developers, team leads, external clients, and it's going well. And I really actually love it. I really love working in teams. And then I realized the problem isn't that I couldn't work in teams. I just was in a non-inclusive team. So from my experience, I've worked both on inclusive and non-inclusive, and I can say that I perform better and contribute more and I also feel more engaged when I'm in a team that embraces inclusion. So challenges in team collaboration. We know collaboration is the core part of any workplace, but for neurodivergent colleagues, certain aspects of teamwork can be challenging if the environment isn't set up for different ways of thinking and working. First one of that barrier is sensory challenges. Imagine trying to focus while someone is blasting music next to you, or there's a bright spotlight shining in your eyes, and people are constantly walking past your desk. It will be stressful. But for many neurodivergent people, this is what a normal work day would feel like in an open office because of sensory overload. And the common sensory challenges are loud open offices where there's background noise, conversations, and constant movement and distractions. Oh, can you get to this? Oh, can you take a look at this? It might even be someone asking you to take a look at the funny meme or harsh lightning, like fluorescent lights that can cause headaches. I know if I'm in, those cubicles, those office cubicles with fluorescent lights, it gets very overstimulating. I get headaches, I get migraines, and then I get seizures. Also, frequent interruptions like unplanned conversations, notifications, or sudden noise, which can break focus, especially when you are in a mode where you are hyper focused. Another is communication barriers. We all know communication is the heart of collaboration, but for some neurodivergent colleagues, certain workplace communication styles can be challenging. First one is indirect instructions. For example, if you want me to fix something and you say make this better, you haven't really described anything to me. You just said make this better. And depending on the relationship I have with that person, I might not want to ask what is it. I also might not want to look stupid, thinking okay I should know it. And I'll go away and think about that for a few hours. And at the end of the day, I've wasted time. I'll probably reach out to you again saying, okay, now can you please clarify? So tone and body language can be misinterpreted. This is very important. Some neurodivergent individuals may struggle with reading between the lines. So sarcasm, implied meaning, and unspoken rules may not always be clear. And the third one is unspoken expectations cause frustration. Because if expectations aren't explicitly stated, it can lead to miscommunication or mistakes. I've had cases where I'm being told, you work on one, two, three, and for weeks and months I've been working on one, two, three, and I've been doing it 100%. Then one day I'm being asked, but why are you not working on four, five? And I'm like, I was never told to work on four, five. And the response I got is, but you should know that you should work on four, five. And I said, no, I should not know. You never told me to work on four, five. I mean, the instructions given was work on one, two, three, and I've been doing that 100% with no other instruction been given. But if you wanted me to work on four, five, if it's is not as important, you could have said work on one, two, three. If you have time, then work on four, five. Another is executive function and time blindness. Time blindness, it is a very real challenge that a lot of neurodivergent individuals deal with, especially people living with ADHD. And what it feels like, there's this distorted sense of time where you think you've been working on a project for 10, 20 minutes, but it's been 2 hours, it's been 3 hours. This can be very frustrating and can lead to misunderstanding about productivity or time management. The second one is switching between tasks, especially when you're in a state of hyperfocus. And I try to explain to people, okay, I'm handling 3 projects or 4 projects. While I'm working on one and I'm really working on this, do not ping me about another. Just give me time. And that's why sometimes I turn off my Slack notifications so I can just finish with one. Because as soon as I'm disturbed, getting back to that, I'm sorry, you think it would take me 5 minutes? It could take me 2, 3 hours to get back to it. Right. And there's also prioritizing or meeting deadlines. Because for people dealing with executive dysfunction, organizing tasks or sticking to strict timeline can feel very impossible. So this is why flexibility, visual tools like timers, reminders, and support from the team can make a significant difference. So how do we then create an inclusive team? I've added 3 points here, which is flexibility, clear communications, and psychological safety. First one being flexibility. So flexibility in how people work doesn't just help neurodivergent individuals, it creates a better work environment for everyone. 3 points on how teams can be more adaptable. One is hybrid work or remote option. And I know a lot of us already work remotely, but a lot of people did not get that opportunity. For some neurodivergent individuals, office environment, as I explained, can be very overwhelming. I've been working remotely since about 2019, and I always say I don't think I will ever go back to an office environment unless maybe they will accommodate my needs, because I'm in my space. There are no distractions. Even people around me know when I want to hyper focus, no distractions, and I realize I perform way better at home, working at home, than working in an office. Also, flexible hours, and this kind of relates to remote work. Some people work best in the early morning, while others hit their stride later in the day. I know when I want to work on the perfect day, I prefer starting say 6 a.m. because for some reason my brain is energized at that time. And once it's like 12 p.m., so what I would do if I have no urgent meetings or deadlines is start work from 6, 7 till about 12, and then take a long break, and then get back to work, and then finish. And that is what I do. And whenever I work like that, I know I've got high energy levels and I'm very productive. Another is outcome-based productivity. That is, instead of measuring success by hours at a desk, focus on what's actually being done. and this allows neurodivergent employees to work at their best pace without unnecessary pressure. I tell people if you can complete a task in 5 hours, your neurodivergent colleague can probably do that in 2 hours and give the same result. But if they are being forced to stretch that 5 hours on that task, they probably won't give a result as good. So if we can shift away from these rigid structures and focus on result, we can create an environment where people can do their best work without struggling against an unnecessary system. Another is communication strategies. Again, good communication is something else that also benefits everyone and not just neurodivergent individuals. Because if we can improve how we communicate, then we can eliminate a lot of unnecessary challenges. So how can we collaborate more effectively? One is being clear and direct. So avoid vague requests like, can you improve this? Instead say, can you make this text larger for readability? Now I know that that is a task. I will get that task done, and I take it, and it's done. Using structured agendas for meetings. That is providing an agenda, in advance, and this really gives neurodivergent colleagues time to process and prepare, which leads to better engagement. And I should add this: if you have a neurodivergent colleague, please do not. Today is Thursday. Do not schedule a meeting for next Friday without telling them what that meeting is about. That is the most frustrating thing you can do. I'm sorry. Because for the next 7, 8 days, that is what I'm thinking about. And I don't care about the result, like what comes out of that meeting, that pressure, that torture I've been through in those days. Nah, it is terrible. So right now, I tell people at work, if you're going to schedule a meeting with me for like a week, then tell me what this meeting is about. If you cannot tell me, then let's have that meeting now. And I'm glad that people around me actually agree to this, and they've changed with that, and I hope they actually pass that on to others. Another is encourage asynchronous communication, because not everyone thinks best on the spot, and giving people time to respond can really improve clarity and contributions. That could be like, using a Mario board for a project discussion where you discuss the project on Monday and you ask everyone they can leave their input, and then you come back and have a conclusion on Friday. Because sometime I might be laying in bed at 3 a.m. and I'm like, oh, I have an idea for that project. I'm sorry, it took me about 3 days for that idea to come. And last one is giving multiple options for communication. Some people process information better in writing, while others prefer verbal explanation. So offering flexibility makes communication smoother for everyone. I know that when I'm in meetings, like Zoom meetings, and something is being discussed, but there is no screen sharing or slideshows, I struggle to actually follow and get what's being discussed. So what I would do is ask that, oh, can you please share your screen? And if there won't be any screen sharing, what I sometimes do is ask for the meeting to be recorded so I can go over that again, and that helps me. Because good communication, again, as I said, it's not just about neurodiversity, it honestly benefits everyone. And another is psychological safety. As I've added here, it is the hidden key to inclusion. And this means people feel safe to speak up or ask for help or even admit mistakes without fearing ridicule. Because for neurodivergent colleagues, this is very important. If someone doesn't feel safe saying, oh, I need a quieter space, or I don't process information well in meetings, they will stay silent and disengaged. And I want to add that them being disengaged doesn't mean they won't do 100% of their work. They will do 100% of their work, they just won't do more. And a lot of neurodivergent people, like me, will love doing more than 100% if we are in a safe environment. For me, I think it's because when I do 100%, I feel like I haven't done enough, so I do a bit more. But if I don't feel safe, and I've been in situations like that, and all I will do is I'll be disengaged, log into work. This is my task. I finish the task. I log off. Don't contribute. In meetings. Sometimes I turn off my camera. I'm like, all you want for me is the result, and all I give back is the result. So it's important that managers and teammates create a culture where everyone feels safe. This might look like managers openly acknowledging when they mess up or checking in with teammates regularly to ask, oh, is there anything you need to work better? Because when people feel psychologically safe, inclusion isn't just a policy, it becomes a lived experience. Now, I mentioned earlier that I am an advocate for accessibility, so I had to add this. Accessibility in digital tools and environment also helps everyone, not just neurodivergent employees. And we know how workplace relies on tools, whether it's communication platforms like Slack, our project management system like Jira, or even our physical office spaces. But are these tools designed for everyone? 3 points here. First is having adjustable text size or contrast on our work platforms. And I know a lot of our work platforms like Slack, Zoom, Jira Confluence, they are actually really accessible, and that's very good. I know I rely on some of the accessibility features on those tools, but what about our custom workplace tools? Are they actually accessible? Another is captions and transcript for meetings. I mentioned earlier, not everyone processes auditory information well, so providing transcripts and captions makes discussion more accessible. When I'm in meetings, like I said earlier, if there is no screen sharing or slideshows, I try to turn on captions, not because I can't hear what's being said, but for some reason, saying the captions helps me process it better. It's like people who can watch TV without subtitles. And third one, as we've discussed, is sensory-friendly workspaces. Having workspaces where employees are allowed to maybe adjust the lighting, reduce noise, or use noise canceling headphones, especially in shared spaces. And this can be seen as simple and small changes, but they can make an enormous difference in productivity, engagement, and especially inclusion. So we've discussed challenges and some solutions that we can apply to them, but I also want to add that neurodivergent individuals bring huge strengths to the table. First one is creativity and innovation. Neurodivergent individuals often approach challenges from unexpected angles. While many people may follow linear patterns of thinking, neurodivergent individuals might jump from idea to idea, and this can seem chaotic at first, but if you give them the time, if you just wait, if they feel safe and you give them the time, that's where the magic happens. And this is because our brains are wired differently, and we tend to see connections that others might overlook. It might be like finding a shortcut to a problem that the team has been dealing with, or thinking of a product improvement that no one else has imagined, or suggesting an idea that just reframes a challenge the team is facing. Another is hyperfocus and specialization. When we're interested in something or find it meaningful, we can enter a state of hyperfocus where distractions fade and we become completely immersed in the task. This could be like me waking up at 2 a.m. and thinking, I want to know how to fix a computer, and I actually get up and but through that I learn a new skill. And in this state, especially if we're working on something productive, we often produce work that's highly detailed, precise, and sometimes even ahead of schedule. So it's not unusual to find a neurodivergent colleague who has developed a skill that is not even related to what they do. And it's not because they were asked to, but because they were curious and passion pulled them in that direction. This can be a huge asset in areas like research, coding, and analysis. Now, and these can sometimes be misunderstood. It might look like, oh, you're being too obsessed or you're ignoring other priorities. But if it is a supportive environment with good structure and communication, this ability can be harnessed as a real superpower. I know that I do this a lot, and I'm in a supportive environment, and my colleagues see this, and they actually do use this to their advantage. Another is pattern recognition. Many neurodivergent individuals excel at spotting trends, anomalies, and connections faster than others. Have you been watching a movie with someone and then they say, "Oh yeah, that's the guy who did it"? It can be very annoying. I do that a lot, and people tell me to shut up. So, whether it's seeing trends in data, spotting inconsistencies in the code base, or noticing small changes in user behavior, this ability to quickly recognize patterns or hidden connections is often second nature. And I've found this to be one of the most valuable, especially in collaborative environment, in areas like troubleshooting, product development, or content strategy. Because sometimes it feels like the brain just connects the dots, and it might even be a case where it's you're not skilled in that particular project, but just saying the structure, just seeing being explained, and something just clicks in your head, and you give an idea, and it works out. And I know I do this a lot, and a lot of times it's solved a lot of problems. But again, like the other strength, this will only shine when it's recognized, supported, and not dismissed as overanalyzing or wasting time. And the last one is empathy and big picture thinking. Some neurodivergent colleagues have heightened emotional intelligence, deep understanding of user experience, and a strong drive for fairness and inclusivity. And they often have this deep understanding of what users or teammates need, because we've had to adapt to environments that weren't really designed for us, and we've we have survived in that environment. And this really becomes a superpower in areas like UX, user experience, customer support, and team collaboration. So, with all we've discussed today, the three final takeaways. The first one is neurodivergent people are already in your workplace. As I said, if you have a team of more than 5 or 6, there is a high chance that one of your colleagues is neurodivergent. So you may already be working with neurodivergent colleagues, whether they're open about this or not. Creating an inclusive environment will benefit everyone. Second one is small changes create a massive impact. The changes we've mentioned, like clearer communication, flexible work structures, and simple accessibility adjustment, can make work easier for everyone. And it's not about special treatment. And as I've said, inclusion benefits everyone, not just neurodivergent employees. And these are the three call to action from today. The first one is bring this insight back to your workplace. So when you get back to work tomorrow or maybe Monday, start conversations about inclusivity and neurodiversity with your team. It could just be asking a colleague, a team lead, or maybe HR if you're that close. Do you know anything about neurodiversity? And that's how you start a conversation. Also, advocate for inclusive team culture. Encourage clearer communication if you are in a work, and I know this can be difficult, if you're in a workplace where you do see that there is no clear communication, try to encourage that. So, people around you can feel safe. And the third one is encourage open conversations about neurodiversity. And a lot of people have asked me, how do we actually start this? And this is more to I would say team leads or HRs. It's very easy to start if it comes from the top. So neurodivergence, it's not a challenge. How rigid workplaces are, and the more we understand and adapt, the more successful, creative, and inclusive our teams will be. Thank you very much for being part of this conversation, and let's keep pushing for better workplaces.